Oh, I had my microphone muted. Amazing. How's it going? Can you hear me now? All right. Awesome. How have you been? It's been a while. Pretty good, pretty good. I just finished work yesterday on a project, and now I have 2 weeks to just chill a little bit before the next one starts. How about yourself? Oh, yeah, the workshop and a course. Which workshop and course? Capturing nostalgia. That's interesting. I'm curious to know, what is it like? I mean, what was the subject? Is it more about color, mood, composition? That's a very interesting subject. Stylized sketching, I can understand more easily what could be about. Okay, let's see this little guy. Kind of wanted him to like look this way. Hey Lockerix, welcome, welcome. How you doing? You want to finish the course and then redraw, polish the stuff from the workshop. Yeah, that's a good idea. I've also been taking a class, mentorship, that's been like 4 months. Is it? Yeah, 4 months. But I'm being lazy, so I'm skipping this last few weeks because I want to focus on these illustrations. And I feel like I've done a lot for the mentorship already, so I'm just being a little lazy. Nostalgia is about everything a little. More about feeling of nostalgia style. About specific color style. That's interesting. I think, I don't know, who was the teacher for the workshop? Yeah, you're still waiting for my mentorship. Well, actually, I think, you know, from next month I could be free. Going forward, it should be alright. Because right now I was like following classes and working, which was pretty intense. J Brecker Mark. I don't think I'm familiar. I'll have to look him up. But I think another artist, which is a friend of mine, that really nails the nostalgic vibe is Luc Courtois. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I'll type it in chat. Do I know how to type it? Yeah, I think so. Should be this. But I'm pretty sure if you look that with art, you're gonna find him. He definitely has a lot of personal art that has a nice nostalgic feel to it. Oh, you're doing Luke's workshop. Perfect. Amazing. We just worked together on this project that I wrapped up yesterday. He did the color script on it. We've been working together for a while. First time was a few years ago, but we started again from this year on some creature projects. He's mostly doing color scripting and some background painting. Yeah, Luke is really good. Experimental painting technique. Yeah, that sounds about right. He is very experimental. This little guy came out pretty funny. Should probably get the first save in. Let's do it. Yeah, the name doesn't matter for now. Warrior Art Camp. They have so many workshops. It's crazy. Very, very good stuff as well. But I think personally for a while I will take a break from classes and stuff. I just want to focus on my own thing. But yeah, if you have a chance, it's definitely good to take classes from time to time. I'm sure there's gonna be plenty for gouache. There's like so many. Like it's a community that is super focused on gouache painting, so I'm sure there's gonna be more. If you get into like Angela's class, I'm not sure if she does a workshop or class about gouache, but that would be really good. You just started. Well then. You can continue for a good while. I think it's good to be flexible with your learning, I would say. Like, don't get stuck on learning just from one source or one place, or even just one way, you know? There are so many different ways to learn art that... I mean, you can go wrong, but it's pretty difficult. There is a lot of value to be found in trying different things. Kind of want to try to add a little bit of moss. I really don't want to spend ages on this sketching phase because I will have to ink the whole thing again, which I wonder if it's a good idea, because I could probably, if I paid a little more attention, I could probably get a decent clean line at this stage as well, but still trying to get a feel for the process. Oh, nice. Nice. Yes, do post those assignments. I've been missing seeing your stuff on the community. Would be nice. Thank you, Alex. Oh, if you mean me, this will be printed. This is part of a big book project that I am trying to create, but it's a lot of effort. I'm starting my own company in a few months, and then I will try to run a Kickstarter for it, and hopefully if that works as well as I hope, then I can probably jump on doing this full time, which would be pretty good, not gonna lie. I would love that. It's kind of funny because I'm sort of transitioning from my usual stuff. Like, this is quite a little bit different from what I usually do, but I think it's time to change a little. It's not gonna be an art book. It's gonna be a Dungeons and Dragons source book. I am planning to make like a 200-300 pages book. So it's gonna be a lot of work, but I started a while back, and I hired a few writers, graphic designer, so they already did quite a little bit of stuff for me, but then I stopped because, you know, money. But now I'm trying to start back full speed. But yeah, Alex, we have a Discord community. Can anyone drop the invite link from the welcome chat if you guys can? Otherwise, I'll have to just go look for it. But if you guys can, that would be good. Hey, Rich, what's up? Environments in Unreal, that was a long time ago. I haven't opened a reel in 4 years. That was really fun. But that's sort of how I am. I just try things out for a while, do things, and then I get bored or I find something else and jump on that. It's been a bit of a struggle of mine just sticking to one thing, but I guess at the end of the day, it's just follow what's fun rather than force yourself to stick to what you chose at the beginning. Like, there's no rule that says, oh, I have to, follow these. But I did struggle with that a lot. I don't know if ever happened to you guys. I'm curious. But basically, since I worked on just doing environment and background for animation and trying to get sort of close to that Ghibli style or, that stylized sort of look, it was very difficult to say, oh, let me do something that is not 100% different, but, let me start learning more about characters. Let me do more line art, because I was very much a paint heavy person, artist. And let me try to study this JRPG sort of style, which is not really what I did. And part of me was, oh, I'm not betraying myself, but kind of like going against what I practiced for so long. But at the end of the day, it's all stuff that it's still very useful. So, what is the company? Do you mean the name? I'm still deciding on it. But it's gonna be a board game company. We do challenges from time to time. For now, we just have a daily sketch one, which is pretty chill, but it's good to get into that habit. But I'm definitely looking into making more challenges for the community so people can, even I was programming a little bot that could help people come up with topics for studies. Just, picking random topics and say, oh, today study perspective, pick this subject and do, I don't know, 10 studies this way, stuff like that. Could be a nice little thing. I think I sort of want to change this from like a block to more like a low stone wall, maybe. Probably this shape I don't like. Stone. I'm probably just gonna make it a little more blocky. Kind of like it's a constructed piece of stone that just maybe collapsed. I will create games, yes. I'm starting from this project first because I've worked on this the most, but I also created board game prototypes that I will definitely want to look more into. By the way, I'm gonna copy paste the invite if you haven't got it. Oh no, I see you joined. Okay, awesome. Sweet, thank you so much. Oh, you find it there. Nice, nice. But yeah, it will definitely be an interesting challenge. It is a little scary. I'm not gonna lie. Just, opening a company, it's also a decent investment. But at the same time, I feel like I wouldn't be happy if I didn't try. Like, I would always stay with the, oh, I wonder what would have happened if I tried to do that. So I really want to take the chance. And at the end of the day, even if it doesn't work out and I wasted some money, like, you can always earn the money back. But, I don't want to live with the regret. I just want to give it a go. because this is what I want to do right now. It's definitely an interesting change, you know, because when you work, and I'm sure you guys know this, but when you work on your own personal project, there is that sense that, well, you know, it's my personal project. I can sort of handle it however I want, and it doesn't have to be anything unless I want it to be, and I don't have to show it to nobody. But then you reach a point where it's like, okay, I feel that I want to take these to the next level. Like I want to make it happen. And it's not even about, oh, you know, I want to do it to earn money, because it might actually backfire. It's more like I wanna see if I am able to make a living out of my own personal project instead of making art for other people's projects, because that is great and all. I mean, I loved it. I still love it. But it's very different than when you make art for your own ideas. I think that that's the ultimate dream for me, at least. Yeah, I agree. It's better to try and regret than not try at all, because then you will have a different kind of regret that is much worse. Do you guys have anything that, you know, not necessarily now, but something that you have that you know you want to work on eventually? Even if you know that maybe, you know, the time is not right today. Like, do you have a project, or maybe just, I don't know, make games, make animation? I think we can probably just move everything down a notch like this. I sort of want to turn this into a small pond. One thing I want to do maybe next time is just do some plant studies, because I feel I have this tendency of always drawing the same shape. Whoops. I hope it didn't crash the stream. OBS just went nuts for a second. You have a project in mind, but you don't feel like you can make it because it will be too much. What it is, if you don't mind me asking. even if you want to stay like generic and don't say like specifically like what kind of project even. All right. I think I want to draw this guy next. Do I want to give him a little cloak, like a mantle? Maybe not. Let's see in a bit. But this guy, I kind of want to make him fish. I could actually make this into girl. Let's see. Let's see what up. I think I just... Deciding on the haircut is gonna be interesting. I feel like. Character with story and other characters journey through different dimensions that all have different word and look and logic. So it's more like an art project, right? Rather than a product, so to speak. If that makes sense. Whoa, what happened to the shape of this? I just realized it looks really stupid. Let me just move it. Okay, so it's more like, yeah, an exploration of a whole world with a story. Yeah, that can feel like it's a lot. But I think good, if you're not worried about, you know, making it to actually a product or something, I think just make what's the most fun thing for you. Because this project was kind of like the same for me. It feels very daunting to just work on it because it's a lot of work I have to make. Probably for this book, not gonna lie, I'm gonna make more than 100 illustrations, and it feels like there's no way I can make that happen. Um, but just start with one thing. You know, sometimes that is all that you really need. Just get started, and then it becomes a little easier. I wonder if I can just make the hair beard is like... I feel she's a little too big compared to the other guy. Let's make her slightly smaller. I'm still not sure about this hat shape, but we'll come back to it. Like movie with different shots. I think that's a nice project. You can definitely get started on what I did for the mentorship. We kind of like worked on something like that. Is just come up with a general like idea if you haven't already, and then write out a very small scene, like, oh, the character is walking atop this cliff and she sees the remains of these giant bones, sun-dried, just lying there, and maybe smoke approaching from the distance. And once you just say that out loud, you kind of start to imagine it, right? It will spark ideas in your head, and then you can do the whole thing. Start with the character design, then do the storyboarding process. That's kind of what I did with my Clara's project. It was very, very fun to work on it that way. Okay, let me see if I can figure her out as well. This is gonna be so difficult. Kind of want to make her that she's like yawning, kind of like bored as she fishes. Maybe the tear might be a little overkill, but let's try a couple different things. Thank you. Glad you like it. The only problem I have with this hat coming in so low is that it kind of cuts off the eyes. Probably gonna change the shape of the head a little as well. So I want those little, I'm not sure how to call them, like fairies, gnomes. Yeah, I'm not sold. She kind of has a funny face. I think I prefer the yawn. I love the bird getting sniped. Poor bird. Yeah, that was funny. I really liked painting the one where she throws the stone. Do you have a team for your company, and will you be able all at once to art direct and company director? Well, I'm planning to start with a friend of mine. He's gonna handle all the admin work. So he's gonna talk with influencer to like send our products, and he's gonna talk to the accountant and all that sort of thing. And I will just try to focus on the direction of the product itself for now. Yeah, I definitely couldn't, because in the meantime I also have to continue with my work, because until we launch the product, that's gonna be the only source of revenue. Let's see, I sort of want her fishing pole to come like this way, so it doesn't tangent with anything here, and then it can sort of like just come straight down here, and then she's just gotta get back into drawing some gestures and poses. I've been slacking off a little, but now that I have some free time and I'm done with the classes, I'm gonna go back to do that. And let's give her like a little bucket for the fish, or I don't think it's gonna be fish because it's a really small pond, so I'm not sure what she's fishing for necessarily, but we'll figure that out. Yeah, exactly, because trying to handle everything on my own would be really crazy. What other classes did you add? I did, well, to be completely honest, I did a gesture drawing or figure construction drawing class, but I slacked off a lot. I did the first 3 weeks, but then as I was working full time and I was doing the mentorship and also doing that class, it just came to be a little too crazy for me. So I think I did only the first few weeks of that class, but it still was very, very useful. I think I also, to be completely honest, I got discouraged a little because I wasn't getting as much feedback as I wanted to, and the mentorship was sort of the same. Like the teachers were, "Oh, this is looking great. This is amazing. I love it. I love it." So, you know, I'm actually taking the class to get my ass kicked and be like, learn a lot. But if you just tell me my stuff is great, then I lose motivation to, do stuff for the class, basically. Which I don't blame the teachers. I found myself in similar places when you have a student that maybe is more experienced, or they're even a professional. It becomes a lot harder to teach. So I don't blame them, but still, from the student perspective, is a little demotivating sometimes. Did I finish it? No. I guess I didn't. And even for the Clar one, I don't think I scanned it all. Let me see if I have it, because I also bought a scanner, so I can. And you can see that. I don't know if it's obvious, but the sketch for this was started on paper. Well, if I do this, then it is obvious. But I'm having a lot of fun just doodling these really quickly on paper and then bringing them in and making a whole illustration out of it. I did the same recently. I don't know if I have it. Nope. Let me see from here, maybe. This one I haven't shown yet to anyone, except a couple of friends, but it's basically the same process. Still for the same project. It's just starting with, this sketch. Very quick doodle on paper, and then just refining the idea. It's very fun. I wonder if maybe like her eyes should look down rather than straight, because it doesn't make any sense that she's not looking. Yeah, this makes a little more sense to me. Thank you. I feel like I'm still developing it. It's not. It's pretty new, so I'm sort of curious to see how it will evolve. Since I have to make so many illustrations, it's definitely bound to change a little bit. And I've been looking at different things than usual. Like I really stopped looking at background art. I'm looking a lot at mangas and JRPGs, concept art for this project. I feel like I've been sort of avoiding this lantern. It might be time to start doing something with it. And another thing that I really um, like about the idea for the company is that I sort of want to make products, so games, books, and all these things, not all of them, but most of them within the same universe. So there's going to be in the same world, and like maybe this is going to establish a lot of the world because it's going to be full of objects and stuff with references of like, oh, this is was made into the city, or the guy who created this comes from this place and stuff like that. And then it would be fun if you then you learned about that city from the first book, and then you have like a board game, like a co-op board game, and you have to fight, I don't know, a creature from that place, for example. Or maybe you are all merchant in that city and you have to trade and stuff. I think it's very nice to base it all in the same universe. Okay, let's start tackling this lantern. I've been slacking off on the since that's the main piece here, I guess. I think I'm just gonna sort of slowly build it up, figure out the design and the perspective as we sketch it. That's another thing that I wanna come back to, perspective. I feel like I haven't practiced in so long and I need to get better at it. And recently I was listening to a Tim McBurney's video because I got his Line Academy, even though I haven't I haven't been watching enough. But just recently I was watching one of his videos, and he said something that was very interesting, which also makes a lot of sense. I never really thought about it, but he said that the more technical is your practice, the more creative your arts can be, the more also free. And I think it makes a lot of sense because the question was, do you actually need to study things like Scott Robertson, How to Draw a Book? Because that is very technical and it's a huge and really goes into perspective. Like, do you actually need that? But he made an interesting point. He said that, if you learn all that stuff, all that technical stuff, then you sort of absorb it and you don't have to think about it as much as you then draw, because it's sort of going to be part of your brain. So you're going to naturally be better at plotting perspective without having to construct wheel lines, for example. So it's very, very interesting. Like, the more technical your practice, the more free your art process. And I think that's basically what we aim for, right? As we study fundamentals, because we have an idea in our head and we just want to portray it the way that we see in our head. And sometimes it is difficult because we don't have that knowledge, that fundamental. So I think it makes a lot of sense that you have to push harder at certain things, make them very technical. And even if they're boring, I think there are ways you can make it fun. Just switch up the subject. You don't have to, draw perfect cubes or stuff like that to make it useful. I think you can just find subject that make it interesting to you and then try to incorporate that knowledge into the practice. Huh, that's interesting. You say you get very attached to the rules. But I think that is true. That is something that can happen. Um I don't think it's necessarily bad because you you have the rules because they sort of guide you, right? You follow certain principles because they help you make decision that improve your art. But usually you reach a point where you start making those decisions without thinking, and that's where the switch happens. So even if you do like a very technical study, it's just gonna help you like consolidate that. But then it's not gonna be immediate, because I think we have to rest, so to speak, to really cementify all the hard principles that we learn. I don't know if you ever noticed that, but maybe you have a period where you study a lot of one subject and it feels like you are not learning it. I'm studying colors. I'm studying colors and I've been doing it for like weeks or like a few months and I don't see any improvement, right? But then maybe you take a break, you go do something else entirely, and then magically your colors become better, and it's not magic. It just feels like you have to take a break. You have to let some time pass before things really cement in your brain, which is kind of the same as when you're training your muscles at the gym. Like, sure, you train, but then you also have to rest. Otherwise, your muscles aren't going to grow. And I think this is basically the same thing. Another exercise that I started trying not too long ago is especially for work. Um, but it's great for your personal art as well. And maybe you already do it. But for me, I have this thing where oftentimes I just sit down. I want to draw, but I don't know what I want to draw. It's like, I'm pretty sure this is a very common experience that, you have the feeling that I want to make some art, but I have no idea what it is that I want to make. Um, and this is not exactly about that, because there are so many ways to find that inspiration. But once I find the inspiration, instead of just jumping into it or look at references, because the first thing we do oftentimes is just look at references. So if I'm like, oh, I have to, in this case, draw a lantern and some gnomes or like these little fairy creatures, then I'm gonna look up references. But I think the very first step is close your eyes, just try to imagine the scene. And it can be very difficult to picture it and then change stuff about it. So you can, picture the image, then you're like, oh, maybe I don't like how I'm imagining the colors, or I don't like the camera angle, and you try to move it. For some people, it's a lot easier than others, but I think you can practice it and you can get better at it, and it saves so much time. It's crazy. because then you sort of are making those decisions as you imagine things in your head rather than later on the paper, which take a lot more time to change. And I've been doing it, especially as I was making illustration for Lorcana, the Disney card game. I would just take a few moments to imagine the scenes and try different composition in my head, and then of course I would sketch them out. But I found it made my process a lot easier, especially as I was trying to optimize time in that case. So I was trying to um, give them sketches. I was starting with a straight color sketch, which is not exactly a standard process. But it worked well because I spent a little extra time playing around with the scene in my head before getting pen to paper. And then you do your research, you grab your references. But I think it's important to do that step first where you just try to explore it in your imagination. Feels like I'm I'm blabbing a lot, but if you guys have any questions or just want to talk about, anything, your current favorite anime or your, what games are you playing, just feel free to interrupt and just shoot them in the chat, because otherwise I tend to ramble quite a little bit. And I think here we can just make that base larger. I also don't like how I made this perfect tangent here, but I think I will change it at the cleanup stage. Or later, we'll see. Just gonna keep it in the back of my head. Let's see. Do you do a value sketch before color sometimes? I don't. Maybe I should sometimes. I think it's very valuable, especially if you're not like super confident with colors, but because you're removing a big part of the equation, and I think it is useful. Personally, I never took that approach, so it doesn't come natural to me. I tried on my very first card of Lorcana, I tried to do like a value sketch, and I feel like it wasn't it wasn't as good as it should have been. Luckily, they gave me more, and I just went straight to color after it. But I think it is valuable, yes. Is it necessary? I don't think so. It depends on your process. But I think it's good to prepare as much as possible when you're making like an illustration. If you try to solve these problems as they come, one at a time, instead of like all together like a madman, I think that can be valuable. So definitely try it out and see if you find it useful. I think it definitely has value. And Alex asked, did AI impact you a lot? So far, no, not really. There was a period of time of a couple of months last year that I wasn't getting any job, but it felt like it wasn't tied to AI. It was more like the COVID bubble was bursting, because what happened is during COVID, people started making all sort of projects and hiring like crazy. And then, suddenly no one was at home anymore. We started living life again, and all those extra people, and it's not great to say extra people, but basically all those hires that came around with COVID were now being let go because the industry was just scaling back to what it was before. So far, no, I haven't. I heard of people, of course, that has impacted, and not just about in terms of not getting jobs, but in the sense of forced by the company to use AI in their workflow. Luckily, that never happened to me so far, and I hope it stays that way, because I would rather not. I'm probably gonna refuse to do that if they ever ask. But it's one thing to say it, and another is to actually do it, because we all have to pay bills to live. So I don't blame the artists that do it because they're forced by the companies. I blame the companies, of course. Sakus, hello, welcome. You say you watched Wild Robot recently? Oh, I still have to watch it. But everyone has been so hyped about it. It was incredibly beautiful and inspiring. One of the best animation movies. Yes, I do want to see it because everyone's talking so positively about it that I'm really, really curious. And one of my old mentors, my first mentor, worked on it. So, even more reason why. Oh, look, this ellipse is just shit. I'm really bad at drawing ellipses. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but at least makes sense. But I definitely have to improve. Make some just ellipse drawing practice. That would be good. During COVID, people played a lot, but now the game industry is slowing down. Yes, that is not great, but at the same time, that's the thing with capitalism and industry is like, oh yeah, everyone's playing game, let's just go crazy and not think about long-term changes. All these people that we're hiring now, what's gonna happen once the industry goes back the way it was. I don't know if they just imagined that COVID would stay or something. Like, I don't know. It feels like they never think that far ahead. Oh, you were forced. That sucks, man. Sorry to hear about it. Yeah, I have a good friend of mine that was also forced to use it. Man, that's really bad. Like, I'm lucky that they didn't ask. And I'm lucky to work for a company that actively says that they don't support AI. That's feels like it's gonna be more and more rare going forward. Oh, YouTube, damn. Feels like so many people. What the fuck? I thought it was more like, a few people here and there, but no, seems like a lot of people are forced to do that. I really don't like it. It's also not fun. Like, who cares about the result? I care about the process. Sure, you could do things in a software. Maybe you could give me a good result of this thing that I'm doing. But it's not all just about the result. I think art is a lot more about the individual artists, the process. And that's the beauty of it. Like, the stuff that you create, only you can create. That's the way I go about it. It doesn't matter the level, the technical ability, but the choices that you make, it's just a combination of all your experiences, what you like, what are your inspirations. So someone else can copy and make something similar, or you might be copying someone else and make something similar, but at the end of the day, it's still yours. While AI, it's really like nothing, because it's just giving you something stolen. It's basically like a collage of things, and you didn't put in the artwork, so you don't even feel good about it. Thank you, Saku. Appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words. Been watching for a while. Love my energy. Today I have energy, and that's why I'm streaming. I haven't streamed in a long time. Today was nice weather outside. I went out to check an office space for the company, like a co-working space. So yeah, it's been a good day. Definitely want to try to do this more often because it just, especially as I have to do illustrations for this project, and there are gonna be so many. It could be fun to do these on streaming. That means no more learning art on the job. Yeah, that is horrible. That's another, sometimes we always think about, well, sometimes we think about just the job impact, but it has so many other negative connotation. Like, yeah, you won't be able to learn because you just basically become someone that refines what the AI chunks out, and that's not any way to learn art. Other artists don't support it, but no one can do it. Most of the mobile games industry went towards AI. Yeah, that sucks. No one can do anything about it. Yeah, I don't know if no one, but definitely the small individual artists. I don't feel like we can do that much except not use it, and also maybe talk with people that are not part of our industry, like even just your family, your friends, that maybe they don't know anything about it, they are pretty excited about it, they're like, oh, I can make images, but then if they know that it really upsets you, maybe they start like not use it. And even if you do that for a few people, I think maybe it can make a difference, right? Maybe it won't, but I think it's still worth trying that. You watch Drustman podcasts and they talk about NFT. What do I think about it? Yeah, I buzz back about Alex. Like, is that still a thing? I mean, the original idea when they first talked about it was pretty interesting. But then it wasn't. And what I mean is, if it was just about digital art ownership, as if it was fine art, then that's cool with me. But then there was the problem of it burns a lot of energy, so that's not sustainable. It's not great for the planet. So that sucks. And then it came out with all the sort of like stupid monkey generator things that were a scam, and there's still a lot of scams. I still get emails like, "Oh, I love your art. I want to buy your stuff for my NFT collection." So it's definitely still a thing, a lot less than at the beginning. But I think, if it was implemented properly, it might be nice because it gave value to like digital art, the same way that fine art sort of is. I wouldn't say it's on the same level because fine art, you have the beauty of just owning a solid thing that you can hang in your house. So unless maybe you have, I don't know, a digital display and you put the NFT into that digital display, so it's kind of like fine art. But then I don't know, I'd rather maybe have a fine art print of that piece, even if it's not the original. I'm not sure. But the way they are right now, or the way they have been, I'm not a fan, honestly. And it's so weird because it feels like everyone, it's kind of like how to both exploit and damage the artists. And it's so weird. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but there's been a lot of hate, I would say, especially at the beginning of the whole AI thing, because it was like, oh, because artists don't want other people to have images. It's like that's not the point. It's not like we want to gatekeep art. You want art, you just make it, or pay someone that makes it if you don't want to learn it. But if you have a tool that it's taking the art that someone else made, and someone else means like a ton of other people made, and it's creating something that doesn't belong to them legally, that's not great. Also, see, you're taking your time with the sketch. Apart from talking, is this usually how you go about it? Do you usually finish it quicker at your work? Well, this is super different than what I do at my work, because I'm supervising background for animation. Um, So for things like these, yes, I do try to take a little more time. I've been going about it for like 1 hour, and I think at the sketch phase, and this is like sketch 2 phase, because the first sketch is this, right, and this is the idea stage, takes 5-10 minutes. Then I'm doing this to figure out everything, all the designs, all the shapes, everything else. I could leave it at this. I think I could just add colors to this, but I think I will still try to ink it because it has a little of a different style, and then I will jump to color. So a small illustration like this might take me around half a day of work, so 4 hours, which I think it's pretty reasonable. And also, line art is still not my forte. I'm not that proficient with line art illustration because I'm not gonna paint it like it's gonna stay this way. So line art is gonna be an integral part of the final product. That's why I'm also taking my time, because it's not gonna go away. It's just gonna stay there. Same as fine art galleries, yes, that could be a thing. I mean, it could be interesting to see if done properly, but I don't see that happening in the near future. Also, another very important thing is it's not so much the talking. I don't think that impacts my speed that much. But it's really trying to slow down and enjoy the process, kind of like a meditation. I feel like these little illustrations, for now, since I still haven't done the Kickstarter, I probably not gonna feel so relaxed once that happens. But they're very like small little meditations, so I don't want to have the same urgency that I feel on the job, basically. And that's something that is very valuable. I would encourage everyone to carve out some time to just be slow and deliberate. Because if you look at the state of the industry, is always like rush, rush. You have to make this new concept art, sketches, like a ton of sketches and explorations and render pieces and call out sheets. But sometimes you just wanna, draw your little gnomes fishing in a pond, maybe some flowers. And you don't want to feel the pressure. Just it's like making art in a more childlike manner, so to speak, for the fun and enjoyment of it, even if it's aimed toward a set goal or project. Still trying to enjoy it for what it is. Makes sense of what your line art is looking like. Thank you. Yeah, the thing, I really like this brush. So the thing is, when I go and ink, I feel like it loses a little bit of this character. Like if you look at this other piece, like I try to still keep some of that gestural quality to it, but it loses a little bit of that. I feel like even if it's still like pencil, it's not super duper clean, because I still wanna have that pencil feel. But this brush is more gestural, so I kind of like it. I kind of like it more. Oh, one thing I didn't realize is kind of like the top of this lantern can really remind us of their hats. I think that could be fun. And I put 2 apples here. I'm just gonna turn this into an apple. Make it less orange-like and more apple-like. I'm not the best at drawing apples. It sounds like it's the simplest thing ever to draw, but then you get super conscious. It's like, is that what an apple looks like? I don't know. I really love that meme that says, you sit down to draw, and then you find yourself Googling bird because you don't know what a bird looks like. It wasn't exactly this, but you get what I'm talking about. It's like you don't know what anything looks like as you start drawing it. The lag is so big on YouTube, the context is lost in chat. No, sometimes it's just I am drawing and I'm answering one thing and I start talking about it and then I just look at the chat and there's like a message from a little while ago. Oh, really? You have one of my sketches? Which ones? I'm curious. Another thing for the company is that I made a line of sketchbooks and I haven't told anyone except a few close friends, but I made a line of sketchbooks that is like very similar to Moleskine, but they have like slightly soft cover to the touch. It's kind of like fake leather and with my illustration on the cover. And I think they're very nice. The problem is I can't sell them right now. So I have 500 sketchbooks sitting in my garage waiting for the company. And then I can sell them. But I think they're really nice. And not just because I made them, but, you know, the paper quality is basically the same as Moleskine. And the base is white, so completely white with this sort of... I have one with this illustration from the streaming, like this on the cover. They're kind of like minimalistic designs, but it's very fun stuff. But they're just they're just sitting there. Hey Luca, what's up? See, back to streaming. Oh, Goblin Hut. Yes, that was fun. That was a fun one. I'll probably include it in the project, even though I didn't make it for this project. It's the same style, so it's probably gonna work. Okay. Thank you for stopping by. Let's try to make this look like their hats. Wonder like how spiky. Oh my god, that's not amazing. I'm not sold. Nah. Let's try something else. Maybe more like a Japanese lantern, so it could be sort of like these. I kind of like the fact that maybe it could go on top, so I could add a little piece that sticks out. Something like that. This shape is not... it's not great. Yep. That's fine. Although I wonder, I kind of liked that in the sketch it was going, although this looks more like a lantern than the original sketch. Like, I mean, maybe this was passable as a lantern still, but I kind of like that it was going more vertical. But maybe I can make the wall go like this. Like maybe there could be like a little extra piece of wall still. And it could be maybe like it's broken off or something like that. And it could have more of these, you know, little plants. I'm not sure how you call those in English. Like little climbing, sorry, climbing vines, sort of, but I'm not sure what's the actual name. Should I add a mushroom? It's always good to have mushrooms, right? I have this feeling that I should, maybe. Can just have a little bit of this hatching for detail on the stone. And this here probably need to have full hatching because it's, you know, shadow. Still trying to figure out, looking at these beasts of artists like Yoshida, Akihiko Yoshida is amazing. How they use lines to indicate different materials or like different sort of shadows, if it's cast or occlusion, or sometimes it's just detail, right? You just do this to indicate there is a little surface variation. I'm still figuring that out. So the idea for this thing, right, is that it's something that I call gathering lantern. And the fun thing is that I created a random generator that just generates random words together. So I typed out like a long list of fantasy words and random words. So when I don't know what I want to draw, I just use that. And then I try to sketch out a few different ideas for the words. And this one came out as gathering lantern, right? And then I can probably turn these into an object for my game. So I'm thinking, you know, it's an artifact of sorts that draws bountifulness to it. So either thanks to these little gnomes or spirits, or you know, other ways around this lantern, if you set it down and you leave it for a night or you leave it for longer, you're gonna start to find bountiful things around it. So you will find apples or general like fruits. You will find small creatures drawn to it. Water will form near it, so it just gathers bountifulness. That's the idea that I got as I was sketching this up. So in a gameplay context, maybe, you know, you are sort of traversing a harsh environment, or maybe you are running out of resources, but you have this, or you just found it and you sort of play around with it to try to understand what it does. And you leave it out, and then you find maybe these little creatures around your camp, leaving fruits for you to eat. Usually, that's not the approach that I take for the design of the content. Typically, it's just I think about the name of the object, and then based on the name, I come up with like a lore description. Or I have writers doing that because they're better than myself. And then I do the illustration based on the description. But some other times, like this past couple ones that I've shown, has been pretty fun to start from the art and then create the object from the art instead of the other way around. What setting on your sketch brush is just round one? And I try to find the right setting for myself and try different styles and brushes. No, so this is actually from a modified version from Lane Brown set. He has like a pencil sketching set, and this is called Flex Pencil. And I think I modified it a little bit. But you can see the shape is like more like flat, like this. And then it has this angle jitter set to pen tilt, which means that based on like how I tilt my pen, I can control the thickness and the angle of the line, which I don't use on every single brush, but on most brushes I now use that. It's very handy. Okay, I want to see if I can maybe drop in a couple of mushrooms in the background without taking away from it. And I think this slug is way too big, because I'm thinking if this is an apple, this slug is gigantic. Should probably be something like this. I mean, it's a fantasy world, so there could be bigger slugs, but I don't want to compete with this guy. I wanted to compete there. This apple also looks kind of stupid. Let's try to give it more form. Can you write his name? Of course. I bought the complete set. It has like 300 brushes, but this one is from the pencil dry media, I think. So you can probably just get that if you're interested in the pencil. Let's see. I don't want to have mushrooms that are like too large. Let's start with this like bell shape first. Like these will compete with the shape of the hat, I feel like. So maybe they can be like way smaller. Yeah, I think smaller is the way to go. And then we can maybe elongate or change the shape so it doesn't conflict as much. I can just make this like a fat mushroom. It's the best kind of mushroom. And then we can make like another. And maybe like a very small one. The other thing when I'm making the illustrations for this project is that I try to add a lot more set dressing and little bits of storytelling, because that's another thing that I really struggle with my art for the longest time. I think it's partly tied with not working with characters or lines and always just thinking about, oh, landscape, environment, light, color. Um, so I'm trying to change that and try to find little places where, you know, you can drop in some more details, and not just for the sake of details, just because, you know, it's fun to create a little more of a story or a world for people to look at. And that's something that I try to pay attention to even when I am consuming media, like maybe I'm reading a manga, and just knowing how long they take to draw something, I try to, you know, look at it for longer, because sometimes you just look at the art and go like, wow, amazing, and then you flip the page and it's like that person probably spent, you know, days drawing like a full page spread, and you just look at it for 2 seconds. So I try to spend a little more time and try to find, because at first glance you can appreciate the whole thing, but then I like when you are rewarded, in a sense that the more time you spend looking at it, the more, you know, small things you find hidden in the artwork. I think that is very nice. You need to have giant creatures 100%. Yeah, that's probably gonna happen. Oh well, this is for Dungeons and Dragons. So I am just creating a source book that adds to the game, but the mechanic is gonna be just the rules of D&D. And this is mostly the idea. I don't want to talk about it too much yet. But basically, is to make, you know, populate the world, make it more engaging and more fun. Because the biggest issue that I find myself, and I've been playing D&D for like 16 years at this point, so I understand why sometimes it gets maybe a little repetitive. But the problem I had is that oftentimes it's very difficult to make the world feel interesting and fresh, because we tend to draw on the stereotypical fantasy stuff. And I would say in the base source book they didn't do a great job, especially for like treasures and things like that. So my goal is just give the players something to engage with the world and immerse themselves in the world a lot better. Because I don't know if you guys play D&D or other tabletop RPGs, but oftentimes the focus is just, oh, you know, the story, the plot, or, you know, the fight, and that's all great, amazing. But I found myself that if there is a little more about the world, the immersion, the stuff you find in it, that could be like locations, objects, creatures, just make them a little more special. I think that adds a lot to the game, makes it more memorable. And I started realizing that, you know, especially as I often started, you know, new campaign, new adventures, and tried different groups as well. It's always like, oh, you start from this little fantasy village, and no one ever gives you a description of this village. It's like a village. We all know what a village looks like, right? But then, if we all draw from what we know a village looks like, it's kind of generic. Like, if I tell you right now, you are an adventurer, and on the road, you find a village. And as you walk through the village, you find a tavern. And you enter the tavern, speak to the barkeep, and ask for something to drink. I'm curious, what do you imagine? What's the image in your head? Because for me, if I get said something like that, or it could be something else. It doesn't have to be a village. It could be like, oh, you walk into town, or you find a cave, or a church. We always tend to draw to what's very like familiar and common. which could be movies, which could be like medieval settings. You kill the barkeep, yes, exactly. But it's like, you know, um, you just tend to draw from what's very common, and I feel that's not, it doesn't make for a memorable game. And so oftentimes the guys are like, you try to add details about the place, a smell, or you know something that you see, something cool. And again, that's very important for immersion. But I think if you just start to think about these objects, this place, and what makes them special, and not everything has to be special. A village can just be a village. It can be just a generic village. If that's what you need, that's perfectly fine. Not everything, because if everything is special, then nothing is. But my point is that oftentimes most stuff tends to be very generic. Because I feel like as dungeon master, and rightfully so, you have to spend so much time and energy like preparing the story, the characters, the plots, and the encounters, the combat. So you really can spend even more time just making things look interesting, or think about, oh, what sort of like special treasure you will find here. You do a fight, oh, you find this cool armor, or like gems or gold, and you find a magic sword or a wand or a potion. But that's all generic stuff to me, and that's not what I want. I want to create things that make the player go, huh, that's interesting. I wonder where this thing is from, or who put it here. How did it end up in this place? And I'm just doing it because it's fun to me, right? I don't think everyone uh, will have to love it. Maybe it's not gonna be the same for everyone, but that's something that it's really fun to me. That's why this thing is starting. I have a friend of mine that I started the project with, and he also feels he's been a dungeon master for as long as I can remember, and he sort of feels the same way, that when he prepares, he doesn't put enough time and effort in this because he's already like too focused on making a good story, good encounters, good NPCs, and that leaves him no energy and time for this sort of things. And the D&D books don't offer so much in terms of that content, I feel like. Maybe try to keep it familiar for a safe place. I guess it depends, because sometimes even if you get into a familiar, and I'm just gonna throw like the first thing that comes to mind, but say that, oh, you walk into this village, and this village is built in a clearing inside a forest, right? That already changes the way you imagine it. And then I can say at the middle of the village, in a big square, there is a giant oak tree, and around this oak tree there is the local town market that is in full swing right now, and people are just selling all kind of goods and wares, and even just saying something simple. And it's not crazy, right? It's nothing that you haven't seen or heard about before, but it just goes against the first thing that you can imagine. If I tell you, oh, you walk into a village, it can still be like a friendly place, but it's just going to be slightly more memorable, slightly different, than just a village, right? Have you seen Daggerfall from Critical Role? I did not. Daggerheart? No, I did not. I tried, and I love those guys. Like, they are amazing, but I can't follow um, people playing as I work. It gets very distracting, and I focus on work and I miss everything they are saying, or I have to listen and then I get distracted from work. So I don't have the time to follow such long play sessions, because I'd rather be doing my own art, or playing games, watching anime, reading manga. There's like so many things I want to do, so I end up not listening to them. And I know they did like a source book, which has a very interesting style to it. Yeah, it's always great when things like more story driven are put forward. And initially this wanted to be just very story driven, but then I did some consultation with game designers that work in the tabletop industry, and they recommended that, as great as story stuff is, people also want to have objects that they can just drop into their game as is without having to think the mechanics, because that's really annoying. So we're also doing all that design part for the game. But then on top of being writers, you also have to find writers that are very familiar with D&D mechanics. Otherwise, it's problematic. Alrighty. I think the sketch is pretty much done. What do you guys think? I think at this point I would just have to ink, but I might do that on a separate stream. And then probably it's gonna be ink plus color. But I still really have to figure out how to go about inking, because it's basically like redrawing everything, but not thinking about design, because we already established all of that in here, so there's not going to be any more decision to be made. It's just going to be cleaning up lines and getting things nice and tidy. I kind of like this color for line art, so let me save a swatch, because why not? Oh, really? Anthony Jones is the AD. I had no idea. That's really cool. Actually, my first mentorship, it was not with Anthony, it was with Kale and Chuck, but it was under Robot Pencil, website. That was really fun. I learned so much, and I worked so hard during that mentorship. It was crazy. But it was very useful to work that hard for, those 2 months. Just gonna hint another little mushroom there. Alrighty. Cool. And maybe just a detail to these sleeves could be nice, even if it's super tiny. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna call it now, guys. I didn't even plan, how long this would have lasted. But thank you so much for coming to this. I'm gonna say first stream, because I haven't done a streaming in like, I don't know, 2 years or a year and a half, something like that. It was very fun. Thank you for keeping me company in the chat, and I'm definitely looking forward to do this again. Maybe the weekend, maybe next week. So keep your eyes peeled. I'm gonna post it on Discord. So if you guys have the role, you're gonna be pinged. There is a role called the Circle. If you just want to hang out here in the chat as I stream, you just grab that role and you'll get notified when I do this. So yeah, thank you so much for hanging with me. I hope you have a great weekend and talk again soon. Bye bye, until next time.